Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome to another edition of Touchdown Under Mad Monday. I'm joined by my co-host as always, Marky Davison. Mad Monday, the show that we react. We get a little bit silly sometimes. We get a little bit reviewy. We get a little bit hangover if it's been after a game. But it's all things what's happening with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Marky D, how are you doing?
I'm pretty good. So this time last week, there was no signings, right? There was no free agent at all. Is that correct?
Well, we had the tampering. Well, when you and I recorded it, yes, there hadn't been. But then when it goes live, no, it hadn't been. But we'd started to see the players that weren't that were on the team. The tampering results come out. So but nothing was really official. There were only hints.
Right. So it's been a pretty crazy week then, right? And what a good way to start Mad Monday to review some of these things, because it's been, it all started with Patrick Peterson, the defensive guys, and we'll get into some other players too. But it's been a pretty crazy week for me, and I think it's been a really good week. Because we started talking about the common Steelers poke the logo. That was where we started.
That was what we were talking about. Yeah, that's right.
And then 24 hours. Oh, they're not doing anything. And then the next 7 days, a lot has changed. This team has changed everywhere.
So we talked a couple of days ago on Touchdown Under around Cole Holcomb, and we talked about that sort of stuff. That was all the focus. And then obviously you had a Landon Roberts and Ciamalo is the latest name off the list. We'll get into those guys a bit later on in the show. We're also going to talk a little bit about draft needs and where they sort of sit after the first round or first week of free agency. I think it's still on the first wave, because usually the first wave goes into the draft. But how are you feeling right now? Because there's a lot of talk about how Andy Weidel and how Omar Khan are approaching this different to Kevin Colbert. I know from the messages you sent me recently over the last 24 hours, you're pretty high on things. So I wanted to pick up on that. How are you feeling after this first week of free agency?
Well, I think it's pretty good. Obviously, with the inside linebackers, they didn't like what they had with Devin Bush. They weren't going to bring him back. But the surprise cut for me was Miles Jack. And also, I thought they're going to re-sign Spillane, but they went a different direction. They got the guy from Washington. I think that's Holcomb, and they got the other bloke, Edwards, the Super Bowl champion. So they kind of changing things there. And then also with Waddle and Omar Khan, they're going back to the trenches and on the offensive line. Did some good deals there with how do you pronounce his name? I'm going to stuff it up. Is it Isaac?
Well, So for me, it's Isaac Ciamalo. That's how I would pronounce it with an Australian accent, having mates and played football.
How do we shorten that? Isaac, see you later.
I just call it. Yeah, I don't know. We have my Americans don't have Milo, so it doesn't make sense. It's like a sports Nesquik that we have here.
I've in this podcast too. I actually got a question for you. When I can try and fit it in. It's something that's been bugging me the last few days, but I'll bring it up soon.
No, just go for it. You can go for it if you want.
You want to go now?
Yeah,
okay.
Go.
Look, okay. Here's breaking news. What are your thoughts on this idea of the picket fence? That slang about the offensive line nickname. Have you heard that? It's been going around the internet a lot. I've seen more and more on Twitter. Picket fence, picket fence, picket fence. I don't like it. I think a picket fence, you can jump over it, you can run through it, you can easily get an axe out and chop through it. I don't like the name picket fence.
Look, it's going to get cancelled, right? Because at some point, because that's all I'm going to say. Because the actual slang term is a white picket fence.
Right.
Right. I don't think it's going to last very long. Someone's going to some smart ass is going to point it out. It's not going to last very long. So I wouldn't worry about it. I see what you're saying.
It's not a strong fence.
A brick wall, like a wall of steel.
Steel curtain.
Yeah, I know I'm not too.
I'm not a fan, but I guess now we're cancelled. So we've now got 64
subs. We use the slang term.
So you don't cancel us, but I see what you're saying. I don't know. I just don't like it. I've been seeing around Twitter with the building the picket fence, and it's like a picket fence is not. It's not that strong. You can. I don't know. I understand the relation with Pickett and the offensive line in front of you, but I don't know. Can we get something else? Do we have to force that? So don't force that, Steeler Nation. We need something better.
Yeah,
or nothing at all.
Yeah, 100%.
But I do like the signings though. I do like bringing the two guys, and on the offensive line, there's like a bit of chaos now because I actually thought that into next year, with how much they played together, I thought they might be the starting 5 and get some guys for depth. But it seems like they're getting guys to challenge them to take their role and take their spot.
Yeah. All right. So bugging question I have for you. Out of all the Steelers players that were on the team last year that are free agents this year, whether they were RFAs like James Pierre, who's still not under contract, enjoy that one.
Really?
Enjoy that one, Steelers.com writer. It's also on the Steel and Nation Radio Network, whatever it is. I don't care. Obviously,
I thought he was signed.
Didn't even know the technicalities of what a restricted free agent is and what they are and what that means. They're not under contract just for next year. But if there's any player that was on the Steelers last year that you want to bring back, I think most people have a name on their lips around this. Which player do you want to bring back? Still, the Steelers remains unsigned by anyone.
Oh, to me, I think it's going to be Terrell Edmonds. I think you're going with him. You sign into a big contract, and I think that defense is like, hey, how's it going? Like, got some real physical guys, middle linebacker. You re-sign Ogunjobi, you got Kazi, then you can play the three safety set. You got Patrick Pettis on the outside, you got Levi Wallace into another year as well, which I'm not down on him. I think he can be a guy as well. And then he's like the last piece I think that the Steelers need to go and get. Maybe for the free agent period for that aspect. And then they might sign some other dudes, as depth at D-line or outside linebacker. I don't know. But I think for him, he'd be fantastic. And then that's like, wow, the Omar Khan and Waddle and the organization done a really good job getting back the players at the right money and the right time. I think that's the one they have to get.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think there are a few other spots that are more that are also of issue, but we're going to get that into sort of part 3. We're not going to have separate parts, but sort of part 3 or topic number 3 of today's show. I want to switch gears to the draft. Now, people have done a bunch of mock drafts. We had the Senior Bowl, we had the East-West Shrine Bowl, you had the Senior Bowl, you had the Combine, you've now had the first wave of free agency. Everything starts to change. I see a lot of depth. I see a lot of mock drafts that haven't changed. Obviously, we've had the trade with the Bears from the Carolina Panthers, and there's a few more trades that may or may not happen as you get closer to the draft. You're starting to see new front offices in different teams and what that means. A good example is last year, going into the draft, everyone thought Aiden Hutchinson was going to go number 1. But this time after the Combine last year and in January when Trent Baalke started at Jacksonville, Bucky Brooks said, I'll move the sticks straight away. He was like, they're not drafting Aiden Hutchinson. They're drafting Trayvon Walker. Trayvon Walker is a typical player, the Trent Baalke type of player that he likes, over a guy like Aiden Hutchinson, just with the size and what he wants to do and the traits and untapped potential. People are like, no, Aiden Hutchinson go number 1. This is what happened. Trayvon Walker went number 1. The reason I bring that up is, number 1, it was a great take. But number 2, things are changing. And so even with how similar we thought Omar Khan would keep it with Kevin Colbert, like the way he did things, we've seen a lot more activity, in the last week or so by the time this goes to air in terms of free agents. So the reason I bring that up is I think draft needs may or may not change. Now, the third segment, we're going to look at a bit of a depth chart and starters. So this may seem premature, but I wanted to get the draft piece out of the way of mine because I think once you sit there and you try and plot out starters and key depth or positions or pieces, particularly the guys that are the direct backup, you sort of feel really good about some things and not so great about other things. And so it's an interesting time to do that with still lots of time for the Steelers to shape their 2023 roster. So one of the things I hear most at the moment, and I've been promising a second video about this specifically, and I will get that out this week, is that Joey Porter is going to be the cornerback pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 17. Now, It's ridiculous because he could go before that. It's also ridiculous he could go after it. It's also ridiculous in a way because I'm hearing Devin Witherspoon is falling down the draft order, which is interesting because I agree with Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks on this, particularly DJ. I think he's probably, apart from Gonzalez, and it's kind of pick your poison, the best overall cornerback prospect in this draft. I have concerns about bringing another Witherspoon in because I think they're going to get rid of the other one, but I like him. But I guess overall, right now, Mark, I actually did a quick mock before the show to sort of talk about a few names that have been discussed around with the Steelers and what they could mean and what a Steelers draft could look like after free agency. But which position would you most like them today? Obviously, like in context of today's date and where we fit in the timeline, which position, and is there a player you want them to draft at pick 17?
Well, for me, I've kind of got two answers. For me, it's kind of like I kind of see the need there at cornerback, and I wouldn't mind seeing them go and get a top corner. And I'll be honest, I don't really care who it is. I trust the organization. If they go that way and they go get corner, if it's Porter or the other blokes you talked about, fair enough, bring him in. And the minute we sign him, I'll go and look at highlights. However, on the other side that I kind of think of now is Omar Khan and the fellas in the organization have really going into the trenches. So there could be an opportunity where they may go and get left tackle or something like that, or they may go and get defensive tackle. Depends how it all pans out. So they might be trying to beef up those two sides of the football and then focus on corner after that. So
well, I don't really know. I'm going to pick that up. You read my mind exactly what I'm thinking. Right now, I want to see them draft, and what I think most likely, even if Joey Porter's on the board, they're drafting Brian Breesy out of Clemson, 17. Mm-hmm. And when we go through the depth chart, I think people start to realize why that's important. I did a mock. Brian Breesy went top 15. I did a mock on, I'm not going to show just for internet connection. So I did the mock. I drafted Devin Witherspoon, who was there. Joe Porter got drafted next pick by the Lions. And almost every mock draft will have Devin Witherspoon before Joe Porter anyway. I drafted DeJuan Jones, the big 6'8" guy that the Steelers apparently liked and met with the Super Bowl, like they met with every other player at the Super Bowl, out of Ohio State, the 6'8", 360-pound guy. Then I drafted Darnell Washington, who could be a first rounder. He could be a second rounder out of Georgia. He's like a 270-pound tight end. I then drafted Mazai Smith, the strong guy, defensive tackle out of Michigan, who the Steelers apparently met with at the Michigan Pro Day, but of course they would because he's one of the three best prospects coming out of Michigan, apart from the center. And of course, Luke Shoemaker, who's starting to rocket up people's draft knowledge. I then drafted KJ Henry out of Clemson as well, who I think is an option for the Steelers. He's about 6'5", 255 pounds. He's another big guy, big rusher there. Might be preferred in some 4-3 teams, but I actually think he could be a really good fit for the Steelers. Then I drafted Keandre Coburn, who we talked about before, cool defensive tackle out of Texas, run stuffer. And then I drafted Davis Allen as well, who's a tight end I really like out of Clemson, who on a Pro Football Network mock draft is ranked 240. I think he's a top 180 player. I really, really like him. Now, notice I picked 3 guys from Clemson. Obviously, the Steelers, I only picked 2 because I do think the Steelers, outside of this draft, I couldn't pick Brian Breesy. But I do think the Steelers like what they see out of the Clemson guys, and I think this Clemson team was a little bit underrated. But going back to what you were saying there, I agree with you, and I think the trenches has got to be where it starts. And it's not just that's what Andy Weidel did at the Eagles. It's where the Steelers have gaps, or it's where the Steelers have older guys, not necessarily on the offensive line, but they've lost a lot of depth, and then Cam Hayward, they're going to lose Alawalu probably to a retirement. They're slashed, and he's not worth the money to bring back in. Cam Hayward, I mean, you want to see 4 years out of him when we did one of our last shows, or at least 3.
I hope so.
I'd love to see 3. I think 2 is realistic. We got to get younger there, and to give him longevity. We've got to get people that can take some snaps away. And when we'll pull up a draft, I want to say draft because it's not for the draft, but we'll pull up a dummy depth chart in a moment. And as you'll see, it's a big gap. So I think Mark, how do you think Steelers fans are going to react when the draft seems really boring, and we're just drafting defensive tackles and offensive tackles and tight ends, and
I think offensive wise, I think to get another guy there would be smart, but I kind of see there is a bigger need right now at the nose tackle position, or where Montravius Adams plays right now, or Tyson Oluwalu. I think he will be retiring, but you've signed now Ogunjobi to a 3-year deal. He's on one side, you have Cam on the other, but you're right. You need to get younger at that position, right? And maybe there's a reason why they went and got Patrick Peterson to be a stopgap, to be corner, to maybe hold it for a little bit. But I think the rage right now is cornerback for sure, and the Porter stuff to be linked to that scenario. There's also still a rage too around. I don't really understand why this is still a rage, but there's still a rage around getting Addison really high too to link up with Kenny. But I think we have a lot of receivers.
But see, I don't understand the Addison thing. unless you move Deontay Johnson, you don't get Addison. Addison does not feel what you need on the Steelers. To me, the Steelers need another big body. We need a big body receiver. We need a guy who's like 6'4", 6'5". Like I want a big.
Well, I got a theory too, because in that same counterpart, there are a lot of Steeler fans. Look, there's so many of us around the world, right? We'll have our own opinions. When we get that, we all
we love that too. It gives something to talk about.
Here's the thing: I do kind of find it funny though. They were linking Adam Thielen to come to the Steelers, and now he's signed with the Panthers. I was saying bring in a veteran receiver, and in my mind, I was like, we already have a veteran receiver with Deontay Johnson. Why would you want to bring in Adam Thielen? Now, the same kind of thing to me. Why would you want to go up there and get 17 to get Addison? I understand the link between Addison and Kenny Pickett. I get that. But there are more needs, pressing needs, and bringing in a receiver who would join the list of what Deontay, George, Miller, Pick, Austin, 4 guys to be 5. That to me is not really a need. And will the team even want to throw the ball that much? They're trying to run the ball. So I more or less see like there's a massive hole now with the tackle, the defensive tackle.
But that's 100% it. You've hit the nail on the head again. Like, yeah, can you hear me?
I'm pretty good, mate. I'm pretty good. Yeah, I can hear you.
yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Sorry, I was trying to load up something that was very internet heavy, but I'm not going to go down that path. That's just going to send the show haywire. But yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Why get another receiver when you're going to run the football?
Mm-hmm.
But that's what. Why not go get you need a tight end. You need someone to block. Like,
yes. But that's what I see around the internet. Most of it's like it's Twitter, it's Facebook. It's like get Addison. But there's nothing real behind that. Explain your theory behind that, right? And I wouldn't mind seeing it. Two blokes who have worked together, passed together at the same point. But it doesn't feel like this team needs it right now. They don't need a receiver at number 17 or where it's going to fall. So I don't think it's going to happen. And I do think that I do want to see a cornerback really high to get that guy to lock down and be opposite Peterson, and Peterson can help him out and be the veteran guy. At the same time, there's a big hole at the nose tackle position. And like you said, defensive line, they're getting older in the tooth. So you need to get someone high to bring that in and also bring back that physicality on the line. Like, we want to see that. So I could see him go and get a high prize defensive tackle at 17. The best part is, though, we have 2 big high picks at 17 and 32, that whatever does happen on the day, and you've probably done this a few times where different scenarios fall out different ways. We get the corner, you get the nose tackle, you get the left tackle or something like that, right? And they've also made big moves too. They made big moves bringing in 2 blokes on the offensive line to help that for depth or challenge to be a starter. So, yeah, I don't really understand the take for Addison coming over, just like I didn't understand the take. So many people were saying, bring in Thielen, he's a veteran guy. It was never going to happen. It was just never going to happen, right? He went to another team. There's no point to bring him in.
So my thing is, unless Broderick Jones I'm not a fan of Paris Johnson, but he's meant to be pretty good. Like, unless Broderick Jones is available at 17, you pick one of the best defensive players on the board. But yeah, to me, I don't think I'd rather trade back than draft. Unless it's Gonzalez or Witherspoon, and even then with Witherspoon, I'm pretty 50-50 on it. Like, I don't want cornerback at 17 because I don't think it's as much as a need.
Where's your head? Is your head now, after all these moves, heading towards that defensive line at that position? Is that where that's where I'm getting the feel from?
Pretty much, because it's expensive to get talent there. Like, look at Javon Hargrave.
Yeah, it's true. That's very true.
Like, it's expensive to get talent there. Fletcher Cox went back on $13 million. That's just money we don't have to worry about. And it means that we can pay Highsmith and have TJ and have Minka. And you know what I mean? Like, we can keep the band together. And
what do you do? It's a 4-year rookie deal, right?
The first round, you've got the 5 years, and then you can tag him. You can basically say, this guy's going to be my defensive tackle for 6 years.
You said it was Brian Breesy, right? That was the one that made.
That's the one, Brian Breesy. That's the guy.
If he falls to 17, that's the one where the Steelers lock him up, and we got him for 5 years, right?
That guy's mentally tough too, man. Yeah. That guy had 3 injuries last year, and 3 injuries, like a kidney infection. He had strep throat, which knocks you really around. His sister passed away from cancer. He dealt with all those things. He had an awesome combine. He's a really a really friendly guy, down to earth. Like, I don't know how I don't care about the Joey Porter link to the Steelers. I care about guys that are going to be good Steelers. As I said, I've got a video coming because it's not that I hate Joey Porter or anything like it. If it was at pick 32, maybe go for it. But I've got questions about his ability to cover. Maybe I don't need the video. I'll just say it here. Like, I have questions about his ability to cover. He didn't do certain things at the combine that I thought he should have done. He has a bunch of penalties because he's a big guy, but he's not quick twitch. You need to be quick twitch in the NFL. I think he's a deep man guy. I think the Steelers have got that covered, to be honest. And I don't think if he can't do some of the drills because he's not quick twitch at the combine, I got questions about how he can cover in zone.
You know the best point to me that you brought up, and I don't know if the listeners around the world too think there's the best point you brought up to me is that you said that Javon Hargraves and those guys in the middle are getting high price contracts.
100%.
So if you get a young bloke at the rookie at that position at 17, that says to me you've got that guy for what, 5 years, 4 years, whatever it is, and then you're on the outside.
Same knowledge as Broderick Jones though. Like, when you don't have to pay a left tackle, like. Right. We go to air overnight for us. It's midday right now. We're recording. Laramie Tunsil signed a 3-year, 12 p.m. on a Monday afternoon for us. Larry Tunsil signed a 3-year, $75 million deal, $25 million a year. Orlando Brown signed a 4-year, was it $84 million or something like that?
Right.
Or maybe it was 64, something like that. But it was in the 60 millions. It's more than $15 million a year. If we go get a Broderick Jones, we don't have to pay $15 million a year. If we go get a Brian Breesy, who's, I'm arguing now at this point with Jalen Carter putting on the weight, not doing testing, the character issues. Like, I think they're a lot closer in overall prospects. Obviously, the ceiling might be a little bit higher with Jalen Carter. But quite frankly, there's either way, we're going to be saving ourselves 15 to 20 million. A cornerback, we can go and get other cornerbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, yes, one can argue that top cornerbacks are making that money, but we can go get a top cornerback next year. We don't really have that necessarily that need.
I got a question for you. What's going to be the very last move for you to know? And I know we're going to do the depth chart now soon, right?
Yeah.
But what's going to be the very last move in the free agent period to say, you know what? I now know what the Steelers are going to do or should do in the draft with 17 and 32. What's gonna be the last move? If that makes sense.
I'll say two things. Like, for the first, are you saying about the first round draft pick or the overall draft?
Ooh, overall draft, and pretty much the first and second pick. I just want to know, like,
okay. So for me, if they don't cut with a spoon, they're not. If they don't cut Akello with a spoon, right? Because we've been talking about Devin with a spoon. If they don't cut Akello with a spoon, they're not picking a cornerback in the first round of the draft, right?
Okay.
Now, at second round, because there are some safeties available, right? If they re-sign Edmonds, that takes the whole, are you bringing in a Brian Branch? Are you bringing in Sidney Brown from Illinois, right? So, to me, if they don't sign defensive tackle or another tackle, and I don't think there's a tackle out there that's necessary for them to sign unless they do a trade with someone. Like, I don't want the one. Like, I'd rather them try and draft a first-round offensive. No. I'd rather them draft DeJuan Jones, probably 10 spots ahead of where he should be drafted, at 17, the guy out of Ohio State, the big guy, than bring in Taylor Lewan. Like, I want to get younger in the trenches, right? For me, the move, you asked me the move is bring in Edmonds back, and not cutting Akello. They're going defensive line every time.
Okay. I'd rather than bring back Claypool to play left tackle than Taylor Lewan. I don't think that's going to happen because of the situation with him and TJ. But the reason why I brought that up, because I just looked at my news in my Twitter, and I'm on Twitter more than usual now. It's crazy. There was a signing here. CJ Gardner-Johnson is signing with the Lions. So that's a safety off the board, I guess. And maybe there's more links now.
That's very good for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'll tell you why. Because I would argue that people would see Edmonds as a bit of a Lions fit, like Sutton, like a bit of a tough guy, big tackler. For him to go to the Lions takes a team that might be interested in Edmonds off the board. That's what I
was thinking. Like, look, there's one safety there. What's Edmonds going to do? Do the Steelers rework some more money and then go and sign into a big deal, right, or 3-year deal? And then you are right, when all these things kind of work out, and we know maybe in next week's Mad Monday, after another crazy week, we start to see the clearer picture of what the Steelers are probably going to do. And I trust your expert advice because you've got receipts and tickets of, from 2 years ago, picking Muth and all these other dudes, right? And I'm like, how'd you pick that? Why didn't you tell me? You know, like making coin out of that one, man. I was like, how'd you pick Muth? Like no one picked Muth, and you're like, yeah, they're gonna get Muth here at second.
Well, so this is an interesting question you asked me. Like, I think a tight end is totally in play at 32.
Okay.
And I'll show you why. I'll show you why. We'll pull up this depth chart. I'll show you why. First of all, I'll say, think about the Matt Canada offense, right? Think about the Matt Canada offense. Think about blocking. Think about Muth and not having to do anything. Think about Muth in the slots. Like,
didn't we draw the Matt Canada offense?
Yeah, I know.
Was it this? Wasn't it that the other day?
All right, yeah, that's right. It was empty. It was a question mark, actually. That's what it was. All right, let's get this. Let's get this. All right.
Can't wait till we have a great team and then he ruins it.
All right, now let's see how it looks on the.
Oh, here we go. Advance.
Is that big enough? We go. Well,
yeah, I like that. Using the old Excel. I love Excel.
Well, it means you can change it around. If I created an image, I just want to check.
That's pretty cool. I like how you've made that on the. That's cool. All right.
All right. So, can you see it? Have I still got you there?
Yeah, I can see it. I'm just so the top part for our audio listeners. Top part is the offense, and we won't forget about your audio guys. And the bottom part is the defense. I like it, man. It's really run down. I like it.
Yeah. So I don't want to have to swivel. You know, like the problem is when you start using a taskbar and you got to like swivel between them two. Plus, I always like a depth chart. I like a horizontal depth chart. So if you're on the audio side, you can visualize this horizontal by position, and then you go down vertically rather than what the Steelers do on their website, which is they go down vertically and go horizontal. I find that really annoying. I like this. And I like having offense and defense right there next to each other when you team build. This is when I get really deep in my Madden franchises. This is how I do it.
Well, technically, what is a depth chart? You know, from top to bottom.
Correct.
You know, whereas the other way goes left to right. And I like it, man. It's cool. All right,
I also always put because of the positions. Always just put and I also think they're more defense related. As odd as this is going to sound, even with a kicker. But I always put special teams defense just because I think it makes it. Now, what's different about my depth chart, for those people on the audio side, is I break out slot cornerback because I do believe I'm of the school of thought that Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks have now around the slot corner, and a lot of teams have had this for a while. Slot corner is a kind of a different position, or certain players can play there, other cornerbacks can't. And same thing with wide receiver. I call it a WR3 or a slot receiver. So in some teams where the slot isn't necessarily as important for their offensive scheme, you might just have a wide receiver number 3. I believe in a slot wide receiver. I think that's important. That's why I break it out. Now, for those on the visual side, you might be looking at right now and you see 3 names in orange. You see some red gaps. You see Percy Harvin in yellow. Percy Harvin's in yellow because I think they should bring in a punter at some point in this offseason to challenge him. I'm not sold on him. You see red where we've got gaps. Now that is a potential third cornerback / slot cornerback. Although Arthur Maulet's my starter there right now. You see a red with wide receiver 3 or slot, which I think is a big issue that I want to talk to you about, Mark. Red starting defensive tackle. To me, Montravius Adams is a great or decent number 2, great number 3, not a number 1. And then you see some orange names, which are guys that are on the roster right now with depth that could be traded or cut, or I don't think will be there. Now, the key thing to factor into this roster, there's going to be some smart people out there in Steeler land that say, Matt, you've got 47 players on your right now in these positions, and the Steelers have got way more players on the website. Fine. This is trying to be as realistic as possible in terms of players that would actually make the 53 and that would start, and then who would be the depth pieces. I don't care about, someone Bradley safety guy that's there. I don't care about a 4-year vet at tight end who I'd never heard of until I went on the Steelers website. That doesn't matter.
Hey, Matty. Dale Loy would say, "Where's Pierre?"
That's it. Pierre's under contract.
Dale always going to run past us and go, wait a minute, 29 minutes in. Where's Pierre? He's signed. You're wrong, Dale. Lolly legs, Lolly. Lale.
So I don't know where you want to start, Marky D.
Oh, boy.
But the first thing I thought would be good to start with, and I actually I've got to fix the spelling on Siumalu, because I sometimes I struggle on the vowels with some of those names. But the first thing I want to pick up on, Mark and I didn't do a reaction video on this channel to Siumalu. It kind of the way at Siumalu, sorry, it happened in a bit of a weird time for us in Australia. He is not the right guard for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He will play left guard.
Controversial.
Likewise, I don't believe that Nate Herbig will play left guard. I think he will play right guard. Now, you ask me why? Snaps. Nate Herbig, 1,648 career snaps at right guard, 377 at left guard. He can play both, but he's playing right. To me, he's the depth piece of right guard. I don't think they're moving Daniels either. Daniels and Okorafor, they've got too much money invested in Okorafor. They want that side just to stay the same, have some consistency. Now, Siumalu, I'm going to get that right. Left guard, he's played 2,686 snaps.
2,000? That's amazing.
At right guard, he's played 1,272. Now, yes, I know these guys are versatile. But I'm not disrupting James Daniels. The other thing you got to remember too is Kevin Dotson, this is his last year of his contract.
Yep.
To me, now they've got Siumalu. I would trade Dotson for a third-round pick, fourth-round pick any day of the week, right? I've been saying that for 5 months, right? It's not the first time I've said that. Like, and then Kendrick Green, everyone's like, oh yeah, obviously he's going to be cut. Like, he's still to me, I prefer Kendrick Green, and not just because I tipped him to go to the Steelers. I would prefer him than bringing back JC Hassenhow, even just for the money. I think that's a good deal. The guy's still started. Do I think that he's a long-term answer to anything? Absolutely not. But who knows? And if he could actually bother to decide that he wants to be a center and care about it more and prove that he can learn how to snap the football, maybe he's got a future. But the other thing that I thought was interesting is I warned back to when Siumalu was drafted. Some things that a lot of Steeler fans and other podcasts out there and even the national networks are not talking about. A couple of things I wanted to highlight off. One, he's got the mongrel in him. His dad was a defensive coach at Oregon State. Yeah, you might have heard that. Two, Siumalu pulls. Right now, we talk about guards and pulling, and we talk and centers and pulling. We think about Pouncey. We think about the Steeler greats on the O-line, what they've done in being pulling. When he came out of college and he was drafted, that was one of the number one things that they talked about with him is that the fact that he can be pulled in the run game, right? That is huge for this team because we all thought we'd get that athleticism out of Kendrick Green. We didn't get it. I didn't see that from Mason Cole. Maybe it's just the tape that I watched, but I didn't see that from Mason Cole last year. I haven't seen it since Pouncey. This guy does that, right? So I love that about him. The other thing that I saw about him is really that the sort of the fact that he is kind of unflappable, and that when he came into the league, most players thought he was going to be there was a big most teams sort of actually projected him to center. So we know Mason Cole's, I think, in the second year of a 3-year deal this year. If Cole gets injured or Cole doesn't work out there, I think rather than moving Daniels to center, which kind of made sense before he came to the Steelers, I think Siumalu could be that depth piece there. So I really like this. Now, the reason why I bring that center bit up is at 32, there might be a guy like Osiris Torrance out of Florida, right, who's available. The Steelers may still upgrade the interior O-line. Now, obviously, most people now are going to focus on Dan Moore Jr., and I've obviously talked about him since he was drafted. Maybe he goes into the guard position. I know our friend KT Smith at Steel Curtain Network has said the same thing. But Dan Moore Jr. is a depth piece on this team. Right now, he's a starter. If they go into the season with that starting O-line that I've got on the screen right now, of Dan Moore Jr., Siumalu, Mason Cole, James Daniels, Okorafor. I'm fine with that, Mark. What are your thoughts when you see it on paper like that?
Well, I did see a lot of Steeler talk about CU Marlowe going over Daniels, and I was like, because he was a right guard, and you know what I'm saying? I just didn't understand.
Such a bad take.
Yeah, but I've seen it a million times on the internet.
Do you know the thing is, I keep hearing he was in the Super Bowl. Joe Haig was in the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
like,
I know,
for the Buccaneers. How'd that go for the Steelers?
Even for me, that I don't really know who the player is, but of course I watch football. I'm saying you go the weakest link would probably be, you know, take over Dotson. Of course, Dotson has one more year in his contract. It makes more sense to put him there at left guard. And Daniels is a great player. I want to have two good left guard and right guard together, not take over someone, because then where do you put Daniels? I've also seen ideas that they said that they want to put Daniels at center. Right, and people are changing everything. I'll put Sia Marlowe at right guard, Daniels at center, and then put in Herbig at left guard, and really mix everything around, and then go and draft a guy at left tackle. Right, so I don't know. I don't overly know, but like for me, I think there are a few things that I think are going to be standing there straight away. Like they're not going to change. Daniels, I don't think will change. A call for I don't think will change, and I think Cole will be there at center as well. That's what I kind of predict those three. It depends what the other side's going to do with the left guard and left tackle. That's really my only issue going forward. But you're paying a guy that much money in CM Marlowe. I'm getting better at his name. You pay him that much money. He's got to start somewhere, right? He has to start somewhere. You're getting paid that much money in a 3-year deal. So it all depends. What do you do with Dotson? I have heard the ideas too, where you then go and trade Dotson because in the last year go and get something for him. That might happen. But then if like he's happy to be backup, that's not bad either. You know,
the reason why I think you trade him as well, when I look at this right now, they need 2 tackles in this draft, even as depth pieces, even if you don't get a starter over Dan Moore.
Yeah,
like
true.
Right now, I'm a bit worried about the tackle depth. I would say that's a concern for me. And I don't necessarily think bringing a free agent. Are you really going to find a free agent tackle for under 5 million, even like under 3 million, but certainly even under 5 million a year, that is going to make this team better? I don't think so, right? So that's a problem in my mind. But there are 3 big red gaps in this. One on offense at wide receiver 3 or the slot wide receiver. Now, a lot of people say Anthony Miller and Calvin Austin can fill in the slot. Yes, right. But then I'm still talking about a wide receiver number 3. We talked a little about defensive tackle there a little bit earlier around the draft. So I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to cover there. And then there's strong safety, which everything Steel fans just kind of, I think, mostly just saying, let's bring back to relevance. But especially now with Gardner Johnson, you know, off the free agent board, so to speak. Well, why don't we finish up on the offense? I'll give you my opinion, and then you can react to it, Mark.
Yep.
It's less about the slot so much for me because of what Freemuth can do. And I would also say there's not much depth here at tight end. I've actually put Hayward at fullback if they don't find a deal for Derek Watt, because I think that's true.
I didn't even notice that. You did
too,
yeah.
Because I think he's like a hybrid, and I think that's fine for the Steelers. And if you get a big blocking tight end, you can use him in fullback sets. That's a little bit more technicality for me. And there'll be other cheap fullbacks around the league. But just because of another offense, and you can react to it, I think that Anthony Miller, and until we see Calvin Austin in a jersey on the field playing, not in the preseason in the NFL, it's hard for me to think he's anything more than a 4th wide receiver. Same thing with Anthony Miller. I do think the Steelers are going to have to figure out what they do for a 3rd wide receiver, because if George Pickens and Deontay Johnson go down right now, even with what Freemuth do, what Hayward does off Connor Hayward does off a few special plays, and what Najee Harris can do, I'm a little bit concerned about the wide receiver team. This could be an Achilles heel.
Well, it's unproven, right? Because we haven't seen anything from Anthony Miller in a few years' time because he got injured, and also it's unproven for Austin because we haven't seen him either. But I'm pretty keen to see what they can do if they can become that 3rd guy. Or
I'm keen, but I do think this is a hole right now, and I think this is a bigger hole than Dan Moore Jr. at left tackle. And still fans are going nuts at me. Oh, Matt, Dan Moore Jr. didn't do this, and Dan Moore Jr. didn't do that. But like the chances of a wide receiver going down even for a couple of games is much larger. Like it could absolutely stifle this offense. It won't matter who's blocking for Kenny Pickett. It's just how I'm feeling today. on the 20th of March.
It is interesting because what you're kind of saying is, well, they got Johnson Pickens there where they played last year, but we didn't see Miller play, we didn't see Austin play, even though it is exciting to see what they can do. But maybe they got to, I don't know, bring someone in, or even if you re-sign Steven Sims, is he really a number 3? He only caught the ball like 14 times last year.
He's a 4th or 5th,
and he's a kick return guy too. So
the other thing too about this list, there's no Gunner O because he's cut. Bye-bye
Gunner's gone. Is he on? Is he still on the contract though now?
Yeah, he'll invoke a cap hit of like
a
dead cap hit of like three. It was either 300 grand or 600 grand, and he saves you 2 million.
I think most people in Steeler minds will probably think that Calvin Austin will have a good training camp. He'll find himself into that receiver 3 slot role, and then Kenny will develop a good connection with him. That's what I hope we see, but we've got to wait till it pans out. But I'm actually pretty excited to see what Miller can do as well, because he was a pretty good receiver with the Bears, and we got him, then he got injured. So both these blokes have been injured, but you are right. That's a real red. If we talk about the safety being a missing link there on the offensive side, who's behind DJ and who's behind Pickens? Because even some Steelers fans don't like DJ. So really, we just got one massive receiver.
So that's exactly. So this is an answer they've got to solve still. Now flip to the defense. We've talked a lot about defensive tackle. I think that's there. You'll also see I don't have Jimmy Jones there because I think he's a practice squad player at best. I don't think he's a starter. I still believe in Quincy Roche. I just do. He's got starter experience now from the Giants. One thing that I haven't highlighted, but I do think is an issue, which is why I think Witherspoon's a chance of being retained, even though I think he could be a good cap. Like, if you could find something better, they'll cut him to save the cap, get something better. But really on this list on the defense is depth at outside linebacker, strong safety, which we've talked a little bit about, and slot corner too. As much as I like Arthur Mollett, I would like to see the Steelers upgrade that talent there, just for how important slot corner is becoming in the game today. But the other thing that I want to point out, and people go, oh, we talked about this before too. Steelers got KZ. They don't need to assign Edmonds. Every safety on this list under under Minka Fitzpatrick, and Miles Killebrew is a special teams player. He's not really playing strong safety for the Steelers. Like, they're all free safeties, these guys. And the Steelers don't play left and right safety. And even if they did, none of these guys are big guys. These guys are all less than, like, I think even Riley's only 198 pounds. KZ's like 177 pounds. Norwood's like 191 pounds. Like, none of those guys are playing strong safety. None of those guys are coming down and they're going to hit a Travis Kelce in the box or a Dawson Knox from the Bills. That's what we need out of strong safety. So to me, they got to get a starter in free agency, and they got to get a depth piece in the draft.
It's interesting too as well, because I was pretty high on like Norwood, and this is his 3rd year now, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And do you think he's going to make the team this year? Because he didn't play too well last year.
Look, he and Riley can have a really good fight, I think. I didn't think Riley was much chop, and then he did a little bit for the Steelers. So I think it's an interesting one. It's the secondary is still a bit of an issue for this team, right?
Yeah.
They're and this is what is going to be interesting in the draft. And I think I heard Jenna Hanna and
Chris Carter.
Chris Carter, that's the one, talking about this on their show at the end of last week about where knowing where the Steelers are going to focus. The Steelers have kind of upgraded the offense as we see now. There's still some work to do on the defense. I think this is going to be we talk about the title of this show is going to have something related to trench warfare. I put a title on the top, but I don't know if it fits the YouTube character list as we record it. But I think this is going to be a very stock standard draft for the Steelers. I think this and by they're going to go defense, they're going to draft trench players, they're going to take value. I mean, there's Daniel Jamarkins, there's 11 starters at tight end. I reckon, he's probably right. Maybe there's 9 worst case, like starters at tight end in this draft that won't even go in the first or second round. Like, not all of them. So all I'm saying is I think Steel fans are going to walk out of the draft feeling pretty cranky. But like they did last year, like they might have been in free agency, like the first day. And then you know what? When the team goes 11-6 or 10-7 in the playoffs and wins a playoff game, you'll sit there and go, hey, you know what? This team did a pretty good job.
I got a question for you. Do you think that it's possible to fill all these needs? You have all the red squares there. Is it in a team sense? Is it possible to fill every single need and be like, I'm talking like top tier, like A, like everyone to have an A minus or a B plus grade? Or does the cap force you to have a weak area somewhere?
It does. No, that's a really good point. It does. I think if you look objectively across the offensive starters that we've got there right now, and you've got 2 wide receivers, right? So you've got enough guys.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue, even for Connor Hayward, for me, I would argue all these players are a B minus or above, right? Probably a B or above. Even people that hate Dan Moore Jr. and Okorafor, like they started
play
games.
well near the ends. They play well near the ends.
I mean, Kenny Pickett, it wasn't like Kenny Pickett was, got sacked to the point he had a knee injury like Burrow did in his first year. What the defense? Yeah, in key spots, they've got some anywhere between, B pluses right through to A pluses. But they got 2 major holes in the middle of the defense right now and in the secondary as well. Like, their ability to stop the run next year in short passing game is a little bit of a concern. And if they have one injury in the cornerback room between Wallace and Peterson, and Wallace is, I think, 28 or 29 this year. I think he's 29. Peterson's 32, obviously. What does that mean? Like, so do I think these needs can be filled in the rest of this first wave of free agency and the second wave? Probably. I think we can get closer. I do think, though, that the Steelers, some of the moves they've made in free agency now allow them to be a bit more BPA focused in the draft and mesh BPA with the team needs. But I just don't think the Steelers aren't going to walk away with like Jordan Addison at 17 and Deontay Banks at 32 and another key player like a Will McDonald the 4th in round 3, and everyone's going to go, yeah, they got all the big name favorites. Steelers going to get guys that other people are like, oh, who's that?
Who? That's me. That's what I say. But I don't care.
And you're going to be poking the logo saying the Steelers didn't do anything in the draft.
Hey, man, I think they've really done well so far, and I like how you've identified the key points, because you are right. The receiver there and the safety and stuff like that, and defensive tackle. There are key holes there for sure, even though it's been a pretty fun week of the free agent period. But that's why I asked you that question. I'm like, can we have maybe a B minus team overall? But in some cases, you are going to get some weak links over the team. But I would like.
But the thing is it's also like, if you got an A plus, can your A plus elevate the play of your C plus, right? Or can your A player elevate the level of your anything B or below? That's what's got to happen. As I said, like, if I'm asking one thing in the next 24 to 48 hours after this goes to air, and maybe it will wake up and this show will just have gone live and they will have announced it. It will happen at like 2 a.m. in the morning for you and I. Is that Terrell Edmonds has signed like a 2 or 3 year deal, and then that changes the game again. But that is a massive concern for me. I think defensive tackle today and to the draft, I think that's fine. You could even trade Dotson for some defensive tackles in this league for a win now team, a team that needs an upgrade at the guard position. But like, the strong safety piece in the way this Pittsburgh Steelers play defense is a concern for me right now.
If that does happen, I've got it covered. Breaking news, guys. Breaking Pittsburgh Steelers news. Terrell Edmonds signed a 3-year deal to the black and gold. Covered.
16 million.
Yeah.
16 million, 6 guaranteed. There you go.
But if you fast forward all the way to this point right now, for some reason you just heard that, then is it true? I don't know. Maybe it's true. But yeah, breaking news. Edmonds signs a massive deal and stays with Minka. You heard it here first.
But with that, we're going to wrap up this week's Steelers Touchdown to Mad Monday. Mad Monday. Hopefully it's another Mad Monday for the Steelers in terms of this free agency. It's certainly been a free agency frenzy. And Mark, as always,
go Steelers. Here we go.